That's right, The Hunger Games. That was a cinematic franchise once. So The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes it's a long-ass title. Don't be a menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood. Not the longest I've heard, though. It's a prequel to the Hunger Games trilogy because in entertainment, you gotta strike while the iron's hot. If you can't do that, we'll make a movie 8 years later. Why not? I know it's based off a book. Just saying. I wasn't expecting. I saw the poster in a theater. I was like, as in a new one? And this movie will hopefully, and in some ways it does, some ways it doesn't, shows how this seemingly nice person will one day become a really big asshole. First of all, it takes place in the Capitol for the most part. In the other Hunger Games movies, we got glimpses of the Capitol. We were still outside eyes visiting the Capitol, but we never got a peek behind those closed doors. This is that peek. So you get political intrigue, classism. Hunger Games has always had classism, but even among the rich and elite, there are subclasses among the classes. Take Snow, for instance. He's not the most popular. He's not the richest. He's not the most connected. He still feels and seems like the little fish among much bigger fish in this Capitol pond. So that's just more interesting to see it through the eyes of a character like that, even though the tactics he learns will aid him in mass murder. But still, for the sake of entertainment. And it taking place in the past, I thought the capital of Pan Am was the most interesting version of the capital of Pan Am we've seen on screen yet. The technology isn't this futuristic digital technology. It's analog. The tech, the sets, all looks like mid-century radio and television shows. The televisions are all CRTs. I was salivating at the thought of that retro gaming experience. But it's futuristic sci-fi style technology woven into there too, and mid-century futuristic sci-fi analog tech, that's peak to me. It's a very specific vibe and experience. So this is the movie. It's not just, I don't want to call it the rise of President Snow, because that's not really what it is. It's just President Snow and how he was back when. But in terms of the world building, this is the chapter in Pan Am's history where the Hunger Games became entertainment. The manipulative tactics of entertainment. What draws people in? What holds them there? The original Hunger Games trilogy, we just come into that world when they've already figured it out. This is them figuring that out. Which means in the world, it's a less interesting Hunger Games event, but the adaptation of making it more marketable, I thought that was the cool part. Not the murder, no, the PR. That was solid. It's not always about that, and when that ends, man, you feel it. Okay, the acting. As for the acting, Tom Blythe as Snow, he is the star of the film, and I thought he was great. And I suppose that is a testament to Tom Blythe. He still makes his character, although you know where he ends up. You know he's the biggest dick in the world in Hunger Games. He ends up there. But for the most part, he makes us forget that. He shows us the human being that will one day be lost. Another standout is Viola Davis, she's pretty much a mad scientist in the movie. No doubt she is absolutely having fun with the role. Shortly into it, I was like, she overcooking it a bit? Little bit. Came across cartoony at times, not gonna deny it. But I also can't deny that I ended up having fun when the character was on screen. At first, I was just I feel like I was laughing at the character and then ended up laughing with the character. Because, well, Viola Davis, she could sell room temperature flat beer to someone. She's that good at the job. She's the real backstory right there. I wanna know what happened to her character. Sid do experiments on her in Final Fantasy VI? What happened? Why is she crazy? Peter Dinklage was great too. The guy who came up with the Hunger Games. What would that person feel on his day-to-day? Peter Dinklage we know, I don't need to sell Peter Dinklage. We know how great he is. He brings that here. Rachel Zegler. Okay, she has an amazing voice. Every time she's singing in this movie, it's clear why she was cast. Other than that, I felt she was forgettable as fuck. Fitting this November theme, apparently, of 2 weeks in a row of dollar store characters, she just kind of felt like dollar store Katniss. And granted, with Katniss, you got her backstory. You knew where she was coming from. You knew why she was doing this thing. She actually was sacrificing herself to save her sister. It's easy to get behind that. But when the first Hunger Games came out, Jennifer Lawrence did something special. You know, she made it her own. She stood out. She had that screen presence. Rachel Zegler's character, Lucy Gray is she's a girl in this movie. Because, granted, the movie, as in the script, the adaptation, could have done a couple more things for her. I was picking a buddy's brain who read the book, and I was like, okay, this scene, spoiler-free, but it has to do with her singing in the Hunger Games. And the way he broke down the information control that Pan Am is known for, that the Capitol's known for, I was like, I could have gone for More of that in the movie. Information control and those futuristic sci-fi dystopian concepts that most certainly, absolutely, definitely don't exist in our world, but, you know, that would be a scary world in which they do exist, but not here. And then the last act happens. This movie's broken up into 3 chapters. The last act, a lot more boring than the first 2. And it just rushed to the end. All this build up with characters and friendships and character conflicts and possible conflicts later. And this is where it's all going to go down. And it does, technically speaking. But again, there's a difference between just doing something, fulfilling a checkbox, and hammering home the point. I'm not saying this doesn't have a couple of emotional moments. Tom Blythe has a couple of great scenes where you're like, he is feeling it and he's selling it. However, when the movie wrapped up, it sprinted to the end. And I felt it cheapened the payoff. Not just the payoff with some of the support characters, but the payoff with Snow himself. He has gone from those golden locks looking like the love child of Nicholas Hoult and Tom Felton to looking for mom's spaghetti. He's seen some shit. He's been there, he's seen the things. But I didn't feel it by the end. So I can't help but think this probably would have been a better miniseries. Actually, once again, for another week of reviews, let's talk about bad CGI. Which, to be fair, VFX departments for these movies work to the bone, underpaid. I absolutely get that. VFX workers getting boned over aside, it happens, it's noticeable, and it's happening more and more. And it happens in here too. There's one scene in particular, I was like, wow, that is the greenest of green screen. So in the end, The Hunger Games, The Ballad of The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes got the title. Sweet. For me, I thought Tom Blythe was great. Didn't need a backstory for President Snow. But among the young President Snow backstory is the real compelling backstory for me, and that's the building upon the Hunger Games. But there were other things that didn't work for me that are kind of important, like the main supporting actress. Pretty much the 3rd chapter, which is kind of a snoring comparison. Like, how does the 3rd chapter feel so slow in its pacing, yet so rushed and fast to its execution to the ending? A true cinematic paradox, my friends, but by God, they do it. It'd probably be a better time if you're drunk. Yeah, now it's a party. All right, so The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Have you seen it? What did you think about it? Whatever you thought, comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more. The end of this movie was so fast, it was such a rush, felt like it was gonna get his head crushed by Omni-Man.